Let's talk about Jimmy Donaldson, who you probably know as MrBeast, literally the biggest creator on the planet. And this is the story of his most ambitious, most expensive, and without a doubt, his most controversial project to date, Beast Games.
It's a pretty simple question, right? But the answer is, well, it's incredibly complicated. Because when you're operating at this kind of scale, the wins are bigger, the failures are catastrophic, and the stakes are just unbelievably high for every single person involved.
And this, right here, is the heart of the story. On one side, you've got the big promise, a $100 million entertainment spectacle. But on the other, a very different reality for some contestants, a class action lawsuit alleging, in their own words, inhumane conditions. Let's dive into both sides of this coin. Okay, first, we have to just take a second and appreciate the sheer mind-bending scale of what MrBeast and Amazon were trying to pull off here. The numbers are, and I'm not exaggerating, completely insane. That's the budget. $100 million. I mean, just let that sink in. That's more money than a lot of Hollywood blockbusters. This was never just going to be another YouTube video. This was a full-blown epic television production. And that's how many contestants they flew in to start filming in Las Vegas. 2,000 people. They were all living on set, eating there, sleeping there, all for a shot at the grand prize. I mean, just imagine the logistics of that. It's staggering. And this is what was on the line. The prize for the one person left standing, $5 million. That's one of the biggest cash prizes in the history of television. The stakes just couldn't be higher. But what was allegedly going on when the cameras weren't rolling? So this is where the whole story takes a very, very sharp turn. Because behind all the glitz and the spectacle of the games, a group of contestants came forward with some really serious allegations, painting a completely different picture of what was happening on set. The lawsuit that was filed against MrBeast's company, Amazon, and a few others, it lays out some really disturbing claims. And the first one is a big one: multiple allegations of sexual harassment. Then there's the claim that medical care was just dangerously bad. People were apparently getting hurt during these really demanding challenges, and the help just wasn't there. And as if that wasn't enough, there are also claims of unpaid wages and expenses. Contestants allege they weren't being properly paid for their time and their work on the show. And you know, it's the specific legal language here that really hits home. The complaint says that the whole situation caused them serious emotional distress. Now, that's not just a casual phrase. It frames this whole thing not just as a mess-up, but as a deeply personal and damaging experience for them. And the claims just kept getting worse. Production staff started talking to reporters, comparing the whole thing to the infamous Fyre Festival. They made some truly horrifying claims, like one contestant who allegedly had a seizure and was left without medical help for nearly an hour. They said staff were ordered to clean up human waste, and if they refused, they were threatened with being fired. They also claimed people were misclassified as volunteers, and that everyone was misled about how many people were actually competing. It's a lot. So with a media firestorm getting bigger by the second and a lawsuit officially filed, how in the world did the team behind the biggest show on Earth decide to respond to all this? All right, so the class action suit was officially filed on September 16, 2024, by 6 contestants who chose to remain anonymous. And on the other side, you've got MrBeast's company, another production company, a subsidiary of Amazon, and 100 unnamed individuals, which is basically legal speak for people they couldn't identify by name when they filed. The first official word came from a spokesperson for MrBeast, and they didn't really deny that there were problems. Instead, they pointed the finger at a whole bunch of outside factors: a huge global internet outage, crazy weather, and a ton of other logistical nightmares. Essentially, they argued it was a perfect storm of things going wrong that were totally out of their control. But then you have MrBeast himself, who took a totally different approach. He went directly to social media and promised his fans he'd release a ton of behind-the-scenes footage that would prove these claims were blown out of proportion. So you have this huge contrast, right? The careful corporate statement on one hand, and the creator's really defiant personal defense on the other. So you've got this massive, ugly controversy and a major lawsuit. You'd think this would be a complete disaster for the show, right? That it would sink it before it even had a chance. Well, that's not what happened. Not even a little bit.
In just its first 25 days on Prime Video, the show pulled in an absolutely unbelievable 50 million viewers. The controversy didn't scare people away. You could argue it actually made them more curious to see what all the fuss was about.
Beast Games didn't just do well, it became the single most watched unscripted show in the entire history of Prime Video. It was a record-breaking runaway freight train of a hit, despite everything going on. So what do you think happened next? Of course, Amazon immediately gave it the green light for not just one, but 2 more seasons. From a purely business point of view, the show was an absolute, undeniable grand slam.
Now, this entire experience, the insane scale, the public backlash, and then the shocking success, it really seems to have happened right around the same time as a major shift in MrBeast's whole strategy. Let's talk about what some people are calling the MrBeast content reset.
And this slide really breaks it down perfectly. You can see the 2 eras side by side. On the left, you've got what made him famous: pure spectacle, super fast editing, and these absolutely jaw-dropping challenges. But on the right, you see the new direction. It's all about storytelling, focusing on characters, and really trying to build an emotional connection with us, the viewers.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. He basically confirmed it himself. When a fan pointed out the change in style, MrBeast replied saying that, yep, this new vibe, less screaming, slower pace, more story, more emotion, that's a deliberate choice. That's the future.
So why the big pivot? Well, there are probably a few smart calculations at play here. First, you've got to fight off viewer fatigue. Even MrBeast has said that an audience can get numb to just seeing bigger and bigger spectacles. Second, it's probably a smart move to adapt to whatever changes are happening with the YouTube algorithm. But the big one, the most important reason, this seems to be about building a massive long-term business empire. Things like Feastables, his charity work, maybe even a phone company. All of that stuff depends on deep, real fan loyalty. And you build that with stories and emotion, not just with a video that goes viral for a week. So at the end of the day, what are we really watching here? Is this the natural evolution of a creator who's learning and growing from his biggest, most challenging project ever? Or is it the cold, calculated reinvention of a global brand making a strategic pivot to make sure it stays on top? The answer to that question might just define the next chapter for the entire creator economy.